Also in these numbers, Michael Steele, we see Harris's popularity dip 5 points, with the erosion mainly coming from independent voters and young voters. How significant is that?
It is. It's pretty significant. Look, Donald Trump has spent since he realized that he finally is going to have to, deal with Kamala Harris on the ticket to drive her floor below his ceiling. Donald Trump has a ceiling of 47, 48%. Steve just showed it. 48 is high. I mean, he wasn't polling that when he was president. His goal is to drive her floor below that. And so the effective messaging of the negative messaging of a dystopian America under these Marxist Democrats like Kamala Harris, these leftists who want to turn your children into transgendered whatever, that's the messaging. And what is disheartening is a lot of Americans like that messaging. They are compelled to align with that messaging, because if they weren't, she would be running away with this race. So her challenge is trying to pull out those voters who do not agree with that messaging, but for some reason feel, well, my vote doesn't matter, or, they haven't engaged before, why should I engage now? That's the hard part for her. And so Donald Trump has been effective. Republicans have been effective of creating and splattering her with a lot of negative messaging that has brought her number down from the plus 50% that it was to now 48% in this race. And now this campaign is playing on Donald Trump's turf. And so I just want to say it's time to throw the conventional approaches off here. Maureen Dowd has a very good piece in the New York Times talking about it's time to flip this script here in the next 3 weeks. To play a little bit more hardball, because they're losing on the numbers game, because though her numbers are being pulled beneath his, and that's being reflected in what you're seeing right now, as Steve pointed out.
There's definitely a major difference in tone of these two campaigns, with the dark messaging we're hearing from Donald Trump compared to what the Harris campaign has been touting as sort of their message of joy, their campaign of joy. And yet, like you said, it seems right now that darker messaging is resonating in a way that's brought Trump closer to Harris with the polling. Victoria, there's so much new polling happening because it's that end of the election cycle. We have this from the New York Times, Siena College, showing Vice President Harris struggling to hold on to Latino voters right now compared to Democratic nominees who've come before her. And according to Pew Research, Latinos are projected to account for nearly 15% of all eligible voters this November. That's a new high. Why is she losing ground with Latino voters?
There are a whole bunch of reasons here, Anna. I'm going to give you two, but before I do that, I do want to underscore something that Michael said, which is the anxiety piece. And I want to put a political psychology spin on it. That essentially, we know from psychology, from hundreds and hundreds of studies, that anxiety, when you cue anxiety, that makes you perk up. It makes you hone in your attention more, and also in many instances leads you to act. So there is a reason why negativity, while negative ads work. And Latinos are not immune to this. They are also cued by anxiety like everybody else. But the two things that I'm seeing, Anna, number one is that Latinos don't think that Trump is talking about them. And in this poll that you cite, the NBC poll, there's some really interesting questions there that ask, when Donald Trump is talking about immigration, is he talking about Latinos like you? And the majority of them say, no, he's talking about other immigrants. There is a difference between those Latinos who have been born here or born abroad. But even then, you're still seeing big chunks of Latinos saying, that's just rhetoric. It doesn't apply to me. The second thing, Anna, that's a little bit softer is that I think that there is a hangover, frustration, discontent among Latinos for the failure of DACA, for the failure of the DREAM Act to ever come to realization. Think way back to the Obama administration, to when President Obama first ran. He made a promise. He made a promise that there would be a pathway to citizenship, and that never came to fruition. So for me, I see this always as a drag that has been with Democrats over the last decade, in addition to the negativity we're seeing from the Trump campaign, in addition to the border chaos, in addition to the fact that Latinos don't think Trump is talking about them.
And so when we keep hearing from the vice president, she will sign that bipartisan border bill. That seems to be her counter argument on the issue of immigration. Is that enough?
I don't think it is enough because we've been told that before. I think both Latinos and non-Latinos have seen the border be a problem for almost 30 years, and in the last 10 years, a huge, huge problem. And so I think that while they may think, okay, that's great, but you know what? I don't know if I'm going to put full faith in that because we know that Congress is divided and we know that there's going to be a lot of pushback. So I think there has to be something else also about in terms of how am I going to make your life better? Latinos care about the same things everyone else does, the economy, healthcare. So I think connecting on that as well.
Michael, as we've talked about, Trump's rhetoric keeps getting darker, it seems. He was asked this weekend if he thinks Election Day will be peaceful. Here's how he responded.
I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
Michael, your reaction to that?
Look, I don't know what else to say to my fellow Americans. I really don't. I'm tired of trying to explain the obvious. I'm tired of trying to help you understand what the man is telling he's going to do. Yes, there will be problems on Election Day. Why? Because that's the setup play. They've been telling and telegraphing that they've got operatives already on the ground and boards of elections who prepared to disrupt this process. Folks, this is an end game for power, and for power by one man who wants to be a dictator. He's told us that. So, yeah, when he sits there and goes, yeah, the problem is from within, that's projection. He knows where the problem is. He is creating the problem. And so I don't know what else to say at this point. Y'all see the stuff. You had 4 years. You saw what happened. There was January 6th. You seem to care about that. Now you're like, oh, let's go back to that. That's okay. So I don't know what else the campaign can do. I don't know what kind of messaging is left. The American people have to decide what kind of country they want. Donald Trump is telling you what he's going to give you. So don't think come January of 2025 or 2026 or 7 that all of a sudden you're going to have, a chicken in your pot. Because likely your behind's going to be sitting in a concentration camp on your way to be pushed out of the country because you said something he didn't agree with. So I think we need to understand and contextualize. I get exactly the point about the negative messaging and how that works. But the clarity should be, we've seen this movie. We know how it ended on January 6th. So when he's sitting here telling you that the problem is from within, folks, it's not you and me. It's him. The problem is in the House, and it's not you, it's him. And so you have an opportunity on Election Day to rid the House of the problem. Do not keep it there. Do not allow it back in. Project 2025 is real. So I don't know what else to say on it at this point, because you got 3 weeks, and and Kamala Harris is tied 48% with that.